Hello, it's Eva again. I wake up ambitious people like you and dare them to be great. And I'm so excited about today because today we're going to talk about self-sabotage. What is it? Why do we do it? And most importantly, what's the process for overcoming self-sabotage? So, if you're feeling stuck, even though you know you have so much potential, or if you know that you're capable of great things, but something just holds you back, you're normal. And you're also in the right spot. Because to a certain extent, we all do it. We all do self-sabotage. But imagine that you could wake up every day feeling energized, confident, like you wanted to really embrace the day, knowing that you're living the life you want. Imagine that you could voice your opinions and thoughts in every situation. Imagine that you would just do things whenever they were supposed to be done rather than procrastinating. Imagine that you'd feel like you could be 100% yourself. That's what it's all about today. But before we dive into what self-sabotage is and why we do it and how to overcome it, let me introduce myself. I was born and raised in beautiful Belgium, and before realizing that I was born to guide people to tap into their inner greatness, I believed that I wanted to make a successful career in the business world. So I studied management and economics, and I started off my career in consulting. Later on, I became an innovation strategist, and I traveled the world to really help the large organizations such as ING in the Netherlands or Novartis in Switzerland, Almarai in Saudi Arabia. I helped these companies to really become more innovative. My job was super challenging from an intellectual point of view, and it was also amazing because I worked with the brightest minds, and it gave me the insight that doing workshops is absolutely one of my main energy boosters. And so when I was working there on the outside, it seemed that I had everything. I was super successful. My career path was very steep. I had promotions early on. I had an amazing team to manage. I could combine working with training for a triathlon. I had a lot of travel opportunities, fantastic colleagues, everything. However, something was missing, and I couldn't pinpoint what that was in the beginning. However, after a while, I noticed that something came from within, and that's very typical of self-sabotage. It's not always something that you can rationally pinpoint, or if you can rationally pinpoint, then there's always a reason for why you can't stop doing that or why it's maybe dangerous to stop doing that. With self-sabotage, there is really often a mismatch with what you have achieved and how it makes you feel, or with what you know you could achieve and the little steps you take, even though you could do so much more. That's really self-sabotage. And in my successful career, I used to be the queen of self-sabotage. I would waste hours, days, even weeks to second guess every decision, to start building my presentation and my workshop up until the very last moment. This went from creating workshops to running very strategic conversations to choosing what I wanted to eat at a restaurant. That feeling that upfront going to a restaurant, you already download the menu to start the selection process in your head was very, very common in people. I also worked really, really, really hard because I believed that if I just worked that little bit harder and pushed myself further, I could somehow cover or stop my insecurities. But it was never ending. I was always insecure. But on the outside, no one would see that I was insecure. They would all think, oh, wow, she has it all together. She just knows what she's doing. And I think the fact that people thought that I always had it together was because I never asked for help. Because asking for help, for me, it meant admitting that I was not good enough. Asking for help, for me, it was weak. It was just proof that I couldn't do it on my own. So it made me feel that I was a burden to others or showing others that I wasn't that good. I also really obsessed over things that I could control because I needed that control. I obsessed over food. I obsessed over exercise. I really wanted to control something in my life, even if it meant sacrificing my health. And the logical me back then would have said, yeah, but I had a very healthy diet. However, health is a very subjective thing. I was also constantly comparing and measuring myself against others because I wanted to understand, okay, what's the point that you reach where people look up to you and say, wow, she's good? Because I then had to be just above that point to feel good. But inside of me, it always had this sense of emptiness and of being inadequate, whatever I had in terms of output. And my professional and private relationships also were rather short because I preferred keeping people at a distance. Because if they got too close, they might have seen the real me and the flawed, insecure person that I be. And they might understand that maybe they were wrong about me. Maybe I wasn't that good. So I was the queen of self-sabotage. But if you would have told me back then that I was self-sabotaging, I would have laughed. I wouldn't believe you because it was so deeply ingrained. I was really stuck in that illusion of success because on the outside, everything looked so perfect. I excelled in sports. Everyone looked up to me. I knew I was going to make promotions soon. Everyone thought I had it figured out. So how could it be self-sabotage? And the feelings of anxiety that I felt and the pressure all the time, I just thought it was normal. And that I thought it was normal, but no one could see it. So I was living a story and a life that wasn't mine. And because of that nagging feeling, I went looking for options and looking for solutions. And that's also how I became to realize how much I was sabotaging myself. And the day that I realized it was the day that I was really terrified. Because what if addressing these patterns and changing my strategies would mean that I would lose everything? Everything I worked for, the applause, the achievements, the illusions of control. Could I risk it? So asking myself that question was really the beginning of my transformation. Because step by step, I learned to look my inner saboteurs in the eye, not fight them, not going against them, wanting them to go away, but understand them and understand how they were also strength and how they were also trying to help me in a way. And so in that understanding, I found a way to leverage the good parts of that sabotage and let go of the bad parts that created that emptiness and that anxiety. And so today, I feel a deep sense of peace, of fulfillment that I never thought possible. I can trust. I can trust others. I can trust myself. I can dare to be me. All of it. And that's what I want for you too. Because as an activation coach, I help ambitious people like you to really look your saboteurs in the eye, make peace with them, and start living from your strength. So what is self-sabotage? And why do we all do it? And why are high performers really prone to self-sabotage? Because they are really good at it. Well, self-sabotage, it's really any type of behavior or action that you take or avoid that prevents you from achieving your goals. And your goals are not external goals or externally driven goals. Your goals are really things that provide you with this state of flow, with this state of effortlessness. Your goals, when you're busy achieving them, when they're really your goals, you are so energized. It's wanting something you want to achieve rather than something that you have to achieve. It's not an obligation, it's a desire. And so if you feel like there's a disconnect with what you want and what you do, or if there's a disconnect with all the things that you do in a day and the energy it provides you, then you know that you're doing self-sabotage. And then you know that you're driven by patterns that are not your patterns. So We all do self-sabotage, but it doesn't necessarily mean that that we all need to change our sabotage patterns. How do you know whether you need to change it? It's by really assessing what the impact is of these self-sabotage patterns on you, how intense the impact is on you, how much energy it costs you to do this. Self-sabotage is also never identical. So everyone does it, but everyone does it in a different way. And there are a lot of archetypes. You can look it up as well online, all the different sabotage archetypes. And in my work, in my practice, I see 5 self-sabotage archetypes pop up a lot. So maybe you resonate with one of these archetypes, knowing that you're never 100% one archetype. You have everything a bit in you. And so maybe you have a tendency to procrastinate. The procrastinators are really the masters in productivity super boosts a couple of hours before the deadline. When you do it, it's very often as well hand in hand with a lot of guilt, or where you feel this waste of energy in the days before that 1 hour that you had this peak. All the days that you keep thinking about, oh, I should still do it, and you're not doing it. It's just a waste of energy. Or maybe you resonate more with knowledge junkies. You know, when you're a knowledge junkie, you always want to get more and more and more knowledge. That one more book, that one more course. And you never fully commit because you always believe that you should know this one more thing before you can really take action. Or maybe a hyperachiever resonates more with you. And hyperachievers, they're always busy. Busy. And there's always a lack of time. And hyperachievers, they're so busy chasing this goal and that OKR that they often miss play, connection, fun. They're typically the ones who wake up one day and think, but what do I actually want? Because I'm doing all of this. It has results, clearly. But is it really what makes me happy? So that's very common with the hyperachievers. Or something that I also see a lot is people pleasing. People pleasers carry a lot of responsibility on their shoulders. They say yes when they actually mean no. And when you have more people pleasing tendency, you're often very overwhelmed by other people's work. And internally, you typically shift between feeling resentful at others because they're putting so much work on your plate, but also anxiety, because if you say no or if there is conflict, what will happen? So anxiety and resentment are very typically emotions that prevail with people that do people pleasing. Or then another amazing self-sabotage archetype. I always have a lot of fun with this archetype when they come to my practice. It's the entertainers. Entertainers who always like to make jokes to brighten up the air, that cover up conflict in high-level chit-chat, that want to deviate the conversation with jokes. No, entertainers are a lot of fun to hang out with, and they always strive for harmony and fun, but typically they struggle with being taken seriously, or they sometimes also struggle with taking themselves seriously because they're always entertaining. And so there's a lot of different archetypes out there. I mean, I think you can create hundreds of them. And why is it then that we all do it? It must have a purpose, and it does have a purpose. Because ironically, self-sabotage, at the beginning, it really drives you to achieve great things. Because if you look at all the qualities that very ambitious people have while they're doing self-sabotage, I mean, it can activate qualities like perseverance, taking loads of responsibility, creativity, resilience, connecting with people. You know, someone that has people-pleasing tendencies, they will have amazing radars and they will know exactly what is necessary to do at which point in time to be liked. Or you have some people and they have this very sensitive radar and they know instantly if someone's not happy or if there's something in the mood that needs to be shifted. So self-sabotage has a lot of gains as well. However, these gains, they often come at a price, and they often have an expiration date. If you do self-sabotage, even though it brings you good things on the short term, on the long term, it often comes at the cost of your authenticity. It comes at the cost of your energy. It really creates this weight, feeling that you're drained, unfulfilled. It really creates a disconnect between who you really are and what the mask you put onto the external world. And so if you can fully be you and stop self-sabotage, that's when you will have this sensation of this effortlessly. It's amazing. So why do we all do it? I mean, we self-sabotage, and it comes at a cost. Of course, it also has good parts. There's a gain versus pain game, self-sabotage. And it's very complex because we do self-sabotage because of our experiences early on in life. A lot of all the self-sabotage that you do today is because of conclusions that you made about yourself, about others, about how the world functions based on what you experienced between the age of 0 and 7. Can you imagine? And it's because, especially between the age of 0 and 7, but of course later on in life as well, you have two fundamental drivers. And the first fundamental driver is that you are in survival mode. At that young age, you develop subconsciously, because you can't think rationally yet. So subconsciously, you develop these coping mechanisms and survival strategies to protect yourself from perceived threats. And when you're a kid, when, for example, there's a lot of conflict or shouting in your household, you will maybe conclude that you need to be shy and make yourself small in order not to become pinpointed in these discussions. And so because it's a perceived threat for your survival. I mean, as a kid, it's very impressive if someone is shouting. I mean, as a grown-up as well, but as a kid even more. Or when your parents are often away or often absent, you will create these survival strategies, or you could create these conclusions about yourself on how can I be seen? How can I get more attention of them? And these conclusions, you will keep seeing these perceived threats today as an adult, even though these threats are no longer present or your strategies are outdated. Next to that need to survive, that survival instincts, you also want to belong. Because during your childhood, connection always wins from authenticity. At that young age, you don't know yet who you are. You don't know what it means to be yourself. And you simply cannot risk not being cared for. So your need for connection and acceptance drives you to adopt behaviors that you believe make yourself more likable, even though they're not necessarily at your best interests. And so this is why we do self-sabotage, why we started doing self-sabotage in the first place. But we can change. You can change. So how do you overcome self-sabotage? From my experience, you need to go through 3 essential phases. The most important one, the hardest one, and the longest one. So what are they? Well, the first one is wake up. This is the most important step. It's the step of awareness. Start paying attention to your thoughts, to your feelings, to your behaviors. Notice the patterns that keep you stuck. Journaling, mindfulness exercises, and feedback from people around you that you trust can be incredibly helpful in this process of becoming aware. What do you do to self-sabotage? Second step, this is the hardest one. It's the decision. Choose. This is where the real work begins. Making a conscious decision to change, because it requires courage. It means facing the fear of the unknown. It means risking not belonging. It requires you to step outside of your comfort zone. The second step is really about believing that you deserve a life full of fulfillment. It's about believing that it's possible to do things differently and feel better because of it. And then there's the third step. This is typically the longest step. It's daring to be great, fully embracing your full potential, following your internal manual rather than external goals. It's about taking risks and really stepping into that greatness. It often involves a combination of tackling the conscious and the at the conscious and the subconscious level, why and how you sabotage yourself. And there's many different ways for waking up, for daring to be great. It can go from reading books about personal development and self-sabotage to reaching out to a coach to help you to uncover and change those subconscious things that keep you in that self-sabotaging behavior. Because overcoming self-sabotage, it's a never-ending process. And that's a good thing. People think, oh, will it never stop? But don't be demotivated by it. It's what makes life interesting. And it makes life an adventure where you need to be awake, need to be aware, where you can learn and play and grow. Because once you tackle your biggest saboteurs, that heaviness, that weight from the self-sabotage goes away, and it won't feel like hard work anymore. I can really promise you that. It will be something fun, as I said, something to look at with curiosity. So overcoming self-sabotage, it's not about achieving perfection. It's about waking up, staying in motion in a direction that fulfills you. It's about choosing to believe in your worthiness and taking the steps towards that life in which you dare to be great. So thank you so much for joining me today. And I'm really excited to be on this journey with you. And remember, you are capable of amazing things. Don't let self-sabotage hold you back any longer. And if you know someone that sabotages themselves, share this video with that person. Because together, we can create a world where ambitious people like you wake up and dare to be great. See you in the next video. Ciao!